Outside the Box Reviews, Giant Monster Mania, we are taking a look at the NECA Pacific Rim Deluxe Winged Otachi figure. Now, earlier in the year, they released the land version of Otachi, and at Toy Fair back in February, they teased that they were doing a flying version, seen slightly later in the film, and now we finally have her in plastic. This figure shares a lot of parts with the original release, but also has some completely new aspects, as well as some interchangeable aspects that are pretty unique. So let's jump right in and take a closer look. For accessories, Otachi comes with a display stand. This is designed to help her fly, and it's a unique piece just because I've never bought anything from NECA that I've had to bolt together myself before. When you get it, this little horseshoe shaped piece at the bottom comes separate, and you can see there's two little bolts in there. You have to line up and screw it on. Not that that's a big deal to me, but it's just funny. I just never really anticipated having to assemble my own NECA figure. But it's a mostly transparent stand. It kind of gets a little more translucent in some areas where you can see kind of the white or the bubbles in the plastic, but it's pretty easy to ignore, and this is designed also to kind of hold a Jaeger here at the bottom so that you can make it look like Otachi is flying with the Jaeger. I don't feel like that effect works particularly well, but we'll take a look at that a little later. This groove up here at the top kind of goes around her waist, and then she balances on it fairly well. If you're familiar with the previous release of Otachi, then this head sculpt will look very familiar to you. It's the same exact head sculpt, same great detail. We got her yellow eyes there, all of her teeth. Of course, you can go inside the mouth there and see all the great detail added in. I did notice that the color scheme in here is a little different. It's a little more on that lightish blue than it was in the original release, which is kind of strange, but not a huge deal, I don't think. Got the little extra eyes up here and the weird skull-looking nose. All the really great wrinkles brought out with a really nice blue dry brushing to give it a lot more depth than it would have otherwise. And then inside we have a unique tongue. This is just kind of a normal tongue, nothing fancy I guess, but the tongue is removable. And then we can insert this beast. It's a very interesting tongue. I think this is the one we saw when it was going after Newt in the underground shelter, and it kind of like messed with him. It's very gross looking, kind of stars out here, and then has the little tentacles at the end. Really nicely detailed, but just very disturbing looking. And that's interesting because I don't particularly think of this one going with the air version of Otachi, though I probably need to rewatch the movie to make absolutely sure that she doesn't use it later on. But this is interchangeable with the tongues off the original version as well. So you could pop either of those tongues in Otachi's mouth and go with whatever customizable look you really wanted to go with. And speaking of which, you can see the neck section here. On the top looks very similar. We have the really nice white dots in there, though not quite as brilliant as they were on the original release. The original release looks like they were glowing just on their own. These are a little more dull. We have the really great spines going down the back, all the lines and grooves. The whole thing is just different shades of green with some great dry brushing and shading in there, which looks really nice. Coming around to the underside of the neck, we see this is a little different. The original release had a big bulbous neck on it, like it was going to spit its venom. This is retracted. We get an extra little scratch on here from the Crimson Typhoon attack. And I think it's cool that we have a normal version now. And this is also swappable. We could take out this neck section and switch it out for the original piece and customize our own version of Otachi in whatever form we want. The mid-torso is really well done. Same piece we had before. It has all the nice scratches from Crimson Typhoon. Some great yellow detailing, all the lines we see on all of our kaiju. On the back, we continue all the spines and the white dots. These white dots are a little more brilliant. They have that blue center to them, just like the original release. It's just these ones up on the neck that seem a little dull, and the rest of them do look pretty good. And then, of course, the whole reason you bought this figure, the arms come out, and then we get these giant translucent wings, and I absolutely love the detailing on these wings. You can see in here, they're kind of a green, but there's some amber hues in here as well, and the translucence to them is just spectacular. They look leathery and gross, and when I touch them, they're a harder plastic. They're a little movable, but not a very soft piece. But you look at them and they feel like they're going to be just jello almost. They're just so membraney looking that you believe they're real. We have the hands up here, which I believe are unique sculpts. I think the other ones are more open for crawling on the ground. These are a little more clawed up, but very cool looking with all the nasty nails on there and all the little gnarled bits. We continue out. We have this little hook here, which is visible on the original sculpt where the wing's tucked away, and then coming down to the tip. Just a very, very nicely sculpted wing, which is important. We also have a separate piece here on the upper arm that when you move the arm, you can kind of just keep them aligned so it looks like the wing is continuous without really having to make it a movable piece that might deteriorate or rip. The legs, I think, are exactly the same pieces. A great scaly texture to them, great paint apps. We got the little knee covers here, spike here in the back, and the same old big Otachi feet. Great for attacking your Jaegers with. And the one last original piece on Otachi here, we have the stub of a tail. The tail's frozen off and broken off in the movie, and here we have this bloody little stump, all the nice Kaiju blue effect going on in there. And this can also be popped off and switched out with the original tail. So to give you a further idea, here's Otachi with the bulbous neck, spitting venom, but it's on the winged body, and then we've added the tail back on. So a very cool interchangeable effect you can go with your Otachi figure. Or with these new parts, we could do something with the original Otachi. We could take away the bulbous neck and put on this new tongue, and I actually really like this. This is really reminiscent of when she was searching for Newt in Hong Kong, and I actually think I might display her this way. Otachi's pretty well articulated. She has a ball joint at the base of her head. Her lower jaws here are on a ball joint system, so they can open up wide, or you can even keep them together and have them open up more like a normal jaw if you didn't want to do the split effect. We do have a ball joint here at the base of the secondary neck, which I feel is more just to allow you to pop the neck on and off because it doesn't really offer a whole lot of movement outside of a little bit of a swivel. We have what I'm pretty sure are ball joints at the shoulders. They're really hard to get a good range of motion out of. They're pretty stiff, but you can rotate them there as well. We have a hinge and rotation here at the elbow. We do still have a ball joint at the wrist, which I wasn't really expecting. At the mid-torso, we can rotate as well as move a little forward and back. Ball joints at the hips, you can go forward and back and a little in and out. At the knee, we could bend as well as rotate. Also here at the ankle, we could also bend and rotate. And I left the tail on here from the first release of Otachi just so I could show you a little better that there is still a ball joint there for the tail. The stump has that little bit of articulation as well, but it's very hard to move. So with the tail, I can show you it actually does have a really nice range. And here we have Otachi pouncing on Gypsy Danger, and that's, I guess, the idea of this stand, that you could loop your Jaeger in here and have Otachi look like it's carrying him, but it really doesn't work in my opinion. It's much too high to really bring Otachi's feet down on top of the Jaeger, or at least with Gypsy Danger, which is the one I'd want it to work with anyway. It's an interesting concept, but I don't think it works too well in execution. And for a comparison, here's winged Otachi next to Gypsy Danger and her land counterpart. And I think these are decently in scale with each other. Otachi was, of course, a more spindly looking kaiju, not quite as chunky as some of the other ones. So I think the size difference here is pretty good. So overall, this figure is pretty cool. I think I actually prefer the land version just a little bit more to this one, but this is a fantastically done figure. If you have the land version, you know what you're getting here. You know the high quality of sculpt and paint apps. I think I'd said with that original review that the Otachi figure was the closest thing NECA had done so far to a Monster Arts quality figure. And looking at this thing, that trend continues, plus these wings are a heck of a lot more manageable than the ones on Destroya. I feel like in some areas the articulation is mildly lacking, but it's not enough that it really disappoints me, and the overall visual appeal of the piece trumps everything else. And I also love that the parts are interchangeable with the original version, which just gives you so many options to display these two, and gives you a good reason to want both, as I can see a lot of people maybe skipping on one or the other. So the flying version of Otachi gets a strong recommend. Make sure you check me out on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews, also follow me on Facebook, link below, and until next time, this has been another Outside the Box Reviews, Giant Monster Mania. Stay tuned for more to come.